This interview is a part of the Oklahoma Historical Society's Oral History Program, Living Legends collection. There is no original date given for this interview. The interview is conducted by Mr. Dub, that's D-U-B, West of Muskogee, Oklahoma. The interviewee is Mrs. Sallie, S-A-L-L-I-E, Toney, T-O-N-E-Y, Davis. The records state that the interview took place somewhere around Tahlequah, but it is more likely that it took place around Vian, Oklahoma, in the Texana area. Mrs. Davis is the great-great-granddaughter of Sequoyah. This interview is being re-recorded on July the 29th, 1985, for inclusion in the permanent collections of the Oral History Program by Judith Michener.
C.W. Dub, D-U-B, West of Muskogee, with Sallie, S-A-L-L-I-E, Toney, T-O-N-E-Y, Davis, who is a descendant of Sequoyah.
Had a little bit, and anytime Bob wants to come out, why, of course, we'd be glad to have him. Now, if you'll give me your name.
Sallie Toney Davis.
Sallie Toney
Yeah.
Davis.
Davis, yeah.
Davis.
Uh-huh.
And
T-O-N-E-Y.
T-O-N-E-Y.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you are the great-granddaughter of Sequoyah.
Yeah.
I see. Now, will you repeat to me the sons of Sequoyah? One of them was named Wagon?
Yeah. Let me go spit this one up.
All right.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. Now, one of the sons of Sequoyah was...
Well, I started this way.
All right.
I just told you just a little bit of it. Well, Grandmother said that morning they was told to get out. They gave him so many hours to get ready and get out. Well, there was an old woman lived close to her, had two boys.
Yeah.
And so she had a mule and a horse, and then the boys had horses. Well, they gathered what they wanted, belonged to what they wanted to take it. Well, when I was getting ready to go, this people walked to this door.
Yeah.
Full-blood Cherokee Indian, had two boys,
Yeah.
about 15 and 18 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
And the woman said, we're not going to leave. This is our home. God gave us, and we're going to keep it. No, they had a gig, you know, that's going to gig them.
Mm-hmm.
These two boys slipped around inside the house and had two of this axe, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And their mother was in the house.
Yeah.
When they come in to pull them out, they killed two of them
I see.
with the axe. And they shot these boys down, and they shot the old lady and set it set fire in the house, burned them up.
Yeah.
See how we was treated?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Grandma, she started off pretty quick when that happened. Well, there was Tizzy and George and the adopted child. And grandmother's name was Rebecca.
Rebecca?
Rebecca Bowles, her maiden name, and then now is Guess. That's T.C. Guess's wife.
Yeah.
Well, when they started off, it was going about a quarter mile, maybe a little further.
Yeah.
And George kept the little boy till he got ready, and he was going to get his deed. You know, he had deed to hide in the house. And when they took off, these boys caught him and killed George.
Nice.
And this boy went on and told his, well, he called him Daddy, you know. Said, Daddy said, Uncle George is killed up there. He's shot. Said, I'll go back. And he had that deed. Said, Uncle George told me, said, give you this deed, Grandma. That's Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave it to her.
I see.
Said, you got a feather bed here, and he said, rip that and put it in there. But they can't find it. They're going to hunt it, and they're going to kill you all.
Yeah.
So when he done that, well, they all go back to see George or bury him. If he's dead, he says. When they got there, they couldn't find him.
Mm-hmm.
He was somewhere in weeds. Rebecca said, let's walk around and hunt him.
Yeah.
Because they might bury him. He wouldn't be buried too deep. And sure enough, there just a little ways where we was about 50 yards away from the road, there was a snag, hickory snag.
Yeah.
And his body was laying on that side. It was covered up with leaves.
Right.
And when they uncovered him, he didn't have no head.
Mm.
And they got his head and sent it to Washington. It's there now in the jar of vinegar.
I see.
And so they went on and...
Now, where did all of this happen? Did it happen?
This side of Houston, Texas.
This side of Houston. You were the Cherokees These were the Cherokees that were in Texas.
Yeah.
I see.
They owned that so many thousand acres.
Yeah.
And they promised them to give them $6.05 an acre when they told them to get out, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and I paid them up, give them $1.05 an acre. Boyd Fest knows it.
Yeah.
And he goes over there and found out there's $5 million laying up there belongs to us, and that's what he's trying to get.
Oh,
it.
good.
And I hope he get it.
I bet he does.
Yeah, and when they got back to where the horses, they walked back, you see, they tied the horses there. And they got on, well, Grandma took care of the deed first, you know, before they went to see Joe.
Yeah.
Well, when they got back and got on back to the horse, come on down here.
Mm-hmm.
And I still got the feather bed.
You have the feather bed?
Yeah.
That's very.
See,
You have the deed?
No, I'll tell you what happened. My grandmother had that deed
Yeah.
in the trunk. So one grade once in a while, here unfolded, you know,
Yeah.
and let us kids see it.
Uh-huh.
It's wrote with gold,
Yeah.
and it's a shaman skin. It's not a paper.
I see.
And she'd let us see us. We'd look at it.
Yeah.
Finally, there's this they call Nighthawk Catuya in Vian.
Yeah.
Well, we was run out of here once.
Oh, you run out of here once?
Yeah, and they told us the white people was going to kill Cherokee around here in Texana.
Uh-huh.
So my grandmother, that's Tisha Gass's daughter, Katie Downing, lives here west of Texana.
Yeah.
And
What is
said-
her name? Katie who?
Katie Downing. She
Downing.
was Katie Gass.
Yes, but then
That
it's
was
Katie
Tisha
Downing.
Gass's daughter.
Yeah.
So let's all leave here. Let's get away from here before they kill our children. Well, they was all up on the mountain to
Yeah.
kill the Cherokees. And so we all loaded our wagon and went north of Vian, about 14 miles of Vian where we lived.
I see.
And I guess we stayed about a year and a half, and that's where Mama lost that medal and that button.
And now that was the medal, that was Sequoyah's medal that had been given
it
her.
burned up in that house.
I see.
And it was about 8 miles north of Vian where the old man lived.
I see.
His name was Gritch. That's where we stayed all night before we crossed the Arkansas River.
I see.
That's 2 wagons.
Yeah.
We had 3 loads. A wagon, we left 1 load there in Mama's trunk, and all our big picture way back yonder.
Yeah.
And they all burned up in there.
Well, I'll say.
And so that's pretty bad where we lost.
Now, when was that you went there?
We went there in 1901 and we came home 1903.
I see.
I don't know how many years that makes. 2?
That's about 2 years.
Yeah.
About 2 years. Year and a half,
anyway,
too.
1903, we came home.
Uh-huh. Now, had you ever heard that all of this originally was Cherokee, where Cherokee Dutch lived?
Yeah.
Had you ever heard that?
No, I don't think I have.
Uh-huh.
Well, anyway, when Sequoyah, he come on. I think he went.
He'd come on ahead.
Yeah. And then landed over here at Tahlequah.
First at Tahlequah in
Yeah,
Park
where
Hill.
the schoolhouse is now.
Uh-huh.
There was a house there that he built. They'd repaired, you know, to keep from going down.
I see.
Well, he quit that place, went to Sallisaw.
I see.
Well, he built another one, a log cabin.
Yeah, I've been out there.
And they told me one time, said, well, Sequoyah planted some kind of a gourd to make the doorknob. And they're still on there in that
Uh-huh.
old building.
I
And I
see.
guess he's close still there.
Well, I'll
My
say.
my grandmother goes over there once in a while before she passed away.
Yeah, I
To
see.
see about the clothes that nobody bothered me.
Uh-huh.
And
Now, she lived to be 104,
yeah,
and she's buried right out here
she buried over here east.
on east
Just
of you.
about a quarter mile. from
I
here.
see.
Yeah, that's where she's
And-
buried. My
and-
great-grandma buried over here.
Your
I wish
great-grandmother.
you'd take that picture to somebody that tore it up. That sheriff, you probably wanted to find out who done it. They thought there was money in there.
Uh,
Used to be a rock mason come along here. Mama got him to hew rocks, you know,
Yeah.
it looked like coffin laying on top of the ground.
I see.
Mama had that fixed, you see. And somebody tore it up not too long ago.
I see. How do you
You
get?
know that White House, first White House, there's 2. One over here and one on the other side.
Yeah.
Just little ways on the other side where the graveyard is.
I see. Maybe your son can go with me and show
yeah.
me.
Uh-huh.
All right. Now, have you, do you know, you don't know anything about, any more than the rest of us, about where Sequoyah is buried?
We never, well, my grandma knew where it was, but you know, like me now, she'd sit down and tell me all the time.
Yeah.
And I was so young, you know how young people is, and sometimes they paying attention and leave, you know, and it comes and goes like that, and it's just where I was.
Now, do you, I ran across an article that the peace pipe, the pipe that Sequoyah smoked was given to Governor Wild Bill Murray, Alfalfa Bill Murray.
Yeah.
And that sometime before, about 1900 or 1901 or somewhere along there, that pipe and the medal had been found, and that the medal had been given to his granddaughter. And that granddaughter was probably your mother, your
yeah, her name was Susie Field.
Susie Field.
Yeah.
And it was destroyed in a fire over north of Vian.
Yeah, about 8 miles north of Vian.
I see. And do you, what daughters did Sequoyah have? Do you know anything about that?
Well, Sequoyah had one daughter now. Well, we go back to Houston. They had 4 boys and a little girl.
Yeah.
And her name was Nancy.
Nancy.
The only girl he had.
She was the one that helped him with the Sequoyah
Yeah.
alphabet?
Yeah, well, this is where it was. Because my great-grandma told my grandma, and she tells me now, if I had sense enough, I ought to listen to all what she said, you know, but sometimes I'd go get doll or play with dog and forget about this story. Well, anyhow, he lived in Houston, Texas, and this little girl got sick. She was sick 2-3 days and died. And so Sequoyah, that's the only girl he had, and he thought it wasn't nothing like in the world, a little girl. And he had 4 boys, you know. So, and there's another boy was there. I don't know his name. They've told me time and again, like me, and I forgot it. Well, this boy with Sequoyah there, one morning, it'd been raining all night. Next morning he got up, he said, his wife was named Sallie. He said, Sallie said, fix me a softy. Me and the boys going up to the mountains. We gone all day. He wouldn't eat. He just wouldn't eat, grieving, you know. So they walked off after Grandma made softy, went up the mountain. Said, this boy said about the middle of the way, he said, Sequoyah give out. And there was a little stream of water running about that deep, pretty blue water from the mountain, you know. And there was a tree there, and there's another tree here. Because they lay down, this boy lays down here, and Sequoyah right in, this water was the middle between these two. Sequoyah went off asleep like that, and that boy was awake. And he's looking down that water running down ways, you know. Well, afterwards, a big old white butterfly come up there and went round and around Sequoyah's head. And afterwards, he light right there. And he kept looking at that butterfly. After a while, he got up, went again, and went back in that stream of water. White butterfly. And so Sequoyah wake up, says, "Here, son, you know, I found my little girl that I lost. Did she come back?" And he had that rock in his hand and that pencil. See, look at what she brought to me. She learned me how to write the Cherokee language. And she told me go through the world and teach the Cherokee language. All my great-grandchildren through the world.
I see.
And he told that little boy.
Oh, I see.
And he had that rock in his hand. Now we see that his picture with that in his hand.
Uh-huh.
And you know that's the truth. And the little girl was dead.
I see.
Well, when he went home, wasn't long then, he told Sallie, said, we're going to have to leave here. One way or another, we're going to have to leave. We'll have to give us a home. They all want this land. He's just going to have to give it up. So he had 4 boys. One named Wagon, Lightning Bug, George, and teasing the little girl named Nancy, but she passed away. And pretty soon these 2 oldest boys married the Mexican girls. And they went on to old Mexico, and Sequoyah bunch come this way. And when they landed here at they called Park Hill, this side of Tahlequah. And finally he went on and built another house in Salisaw. And I guess that's where he passed away.
Yeah.
My grandma knowed where he was buried. Great once in a while they'd go there. Their name is Katie and Sally. Said I'm twin. I have a sister in California. Her name's Katie.
I see.
And when Teasy married the baker, well, they had 2 girls, Sally and Katie. When I was born that morning, Sally and her sister come to see this. My grandma was older, Sally. Well, they named her Sally. Well, long then here come along Katie now. Well, they come and named her Katie.
Yeah.
That's Teasy's daughter.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll see how that goes now. When Grandma married, she married a fellow named Field.
Field.
That's my mama's daddy. 7 Field.
Yeah.
Well,
7?
7 Field. One child all she had, Sally.
He was a white man.
Yeah, he was a German and
Oh, he was
French.
German.
I mean, German and Irish.
I see.
I have grandchildren that are red-headed and red-faced.
Uh-huh.
And, well, when Mama got married, she married Levi Toney.
Levi Toney.
Sequoyah Toney's son. Sequoyah Toney was congressman in Washington.
I see.
He'd come down here once in a while. He's buried over here.
Sequoyah
My
Toney.
grandfather. They both named Sequoyah. My grandfather, my daddy's father's name was Sequoyah Toney.
Yeah.
And my grandma's grandfather was Sequoyah Guest.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And, well, when Mama and Daddy got married, they had 8 children.
Yeah.
And the last was 2 of them. That's me and Katie.
Yeah.
Well,
You're twins.
Grandma Downing and Grandma Tanui come and named us then. That's where our name come from.
I see. Well, that's nice.
Yeah. They called us Silent Katie.
Uh-huh. Do you remember Belle Starr?
Yeah.
You do?
She raised my mother.
She raised your mother?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when Mama was 2 years old, when the war ended, after the war, Mama was born at the day the peace treaty. The very moment peace treaty, Mama was born.
I see.
And then my
Which
grandmother...
peace treaty was that?
Well, I wouldn't know that. See, I ain't got no education. I never did go to school.
Yes.
I wish I had.
Well, it helps sometimes.
Yeah, and my grandmother moved to Colgate. That's where Mama was born. That's where she was born,
I
Colgate, yeah, on that side of Calster.
Yeah.
When Mom was 2 years old, here, you leave him alone. And so Grandma Tanui and Grandma Downing. Grandma Downing got married after they crossed the Red River in this side of Texas. Grandma Downing married to Teasy Downing.
Teasy Downing.
Yeah. They moved up here a little place on this side, well, sort of west-north from Laddie Ogden, way out there in the field. That's where she lived, and Teasy Downing. And she was a mother of 11 children.
I see.
And my grandma passed through here, leading the horses, and she was riding one, had the baby on her lap, that's Mama. I got down here in Prairie Gap, little place there. That's where she wanted. Well, she's a building house. Well, that's where she always stayed, you know, before the war, you know.
Yeah.
And she knowed all these stars. She's kin to them stars. And when she got down there, getting pretty late, she was just hauling brush, I guess trying to build a teepee or something so she can keep the baby here. Well, she started unloading things, and Belle Star and Tom come around that mountain, you know, what they call Hickory's Mountain,
Yeah.
and find Grandma trying to build a little house.
Uh-huh.
And Uncle Tom stops and told her, says, "Sis, you can't not do this. Says, something killed your baby. That's not no protection, that little house you building. So you go home with us. Us men will come back and build your house. Is that's what you want, if you want to stay here." So she goes down young and span. And Belle keep Mama till she's 13 years old when Uncle Tom got killed down here at the racetrack across the lake.
Uh-huh.
Then 2 more years later, well, Aunt Belle got killed. And she had a boy and a girl. And Mama was raised up these young people. And they belonged to Jim Reed in Missouri. That's where she married this white man in Missouri. And then she had 2 kids, Pearl and Ed. Ed was 16 years old when he died. Way to happen. And Mama said he had a gun. Ed did. His daddy gave it to him before he died, when she left Missouri and coming down here. Married Tom Stock. Well, this gun was laying above the door all the time. So, Belle, Mama was 15 years old. Belle would go off with a bunch, you know, do the robbing, you know. Sometimes she'd go with my grandmother. And another woman stayed down there, too. Her name was Jenny Rock. And they're all together taking care of these kids over there, Belle Star's children. So one evening they all rode up, said that boy been sick 2 weeks. Said he'd had chill every other day. Ed did. And he laying on the porch, says he just got over with chill. Said Belle and her bunch, what they call this man, Blue Duck, and Dalton brothers, and Younger brothers. They're all rode up, you see. So she told Jenny Rock, says, "Fix us something to eat pretty quick." She said, "We're on our way to you go." Well, Jenny runs in the kitchen and fixed everything, and they wanted to eat. And she got through eating and said, "Son, you go down to Cane Patch and get me another horse. That horse I'm riding now is give out. And limping, too." So the boy got up and picked up the bridle. Says, "He's sick." He went down there. It used to be them canes high, you know, and that's where them horses were. Well, while the boy come back, he said, "Mama, I can't take that horse. There's too many wild horses in there. When they run, she goes with them. So I can't catch her." So Belle jumped off of the porch and broke the limb off of the tree and whipped that boy till he hit the ground. And they said Mama went to bawling, you know, because the boy was down on the ground. And Duck, what did Doc call him?
Blue Duck.
Blue Duck jumped off and took the switch away from Belle and throwed it away. Said, "This boy is sick," Belle said. "Better leave him alone." So Mama and Grandma raised him up and put him back on the porch. He was a very sick boy. So this Blue Duck and the bunch went back down there and got that horse, kind of horse she wanted. So she fixed their dinner and took off again. And when she got on the horse, she told her son, said, "Son, don't look for me till you see me coming." So they went off. In 2 weeks, said every evening that boy would get up and get that gun and clean it just as good as he could. Said 2 weeks up, just like she told him. Said, "Don't look for me till you see me coming." Just like the boy knows the bare minute she's going to come back. And he went up, he goes up the mountain, Mama said a long time, and he'll come back. Next night, same thing. Said he done that 2 weeks. Said one night, just getting good, doctor, hid the gun up there. So he come back and put his gun up and lay down. Next morning, real early, said we hadn't eat breakfast yet. This here rock mason, I told you a while ago about his fixing my grandma's grave.
Yeah.
Well, the same man come up there was hunting horses. And he called Grandma. Said, "Sallie," said, "Belle's up on the mountain between 2 rocks, or somebody killed him." And said there's a big hole on her neck. And horses down that way. the horse that she rode, down that way. Well, she had the spare ribs and the cornbread in her hand. She had stopped at Whitefield, and some Indian was giving dinner, and they give her something to eat when she got ready to come home. And she had spare ribs and the cornbread in her hand when they picked her up. A lot of people write about this Belle Star. It's not true. It's not true. And my mother was 15 years old when Belle was killed. And a long time before she ever got married. My oldest brother would have been 92 years old. He lived today. And this young man fixed these papers around, and they call him Drake, all over here. He sells newspapers. That's not true. He's just 75 years old. And I'm 78. I wasn't even born the day Belle Star and Mom and Grandma was together. And a lot of people puts out, oh, Belle is a bad woman, Grandma said. Belle was a bad woman, says she's a good woman. I don't mean this because she was the wife of my uncle. She's a good woman, free-hearted woman, helps the poor people. So I go with them when they go to robbing. We stay 2 miles this side to let the men go on. When they bring the stuff, said we'd have tomato cans, things like that. They put money in jewelry and things like that. Blankets and saddles and bridles. This rock mason is still bring his name again. He was down there staying with them. He come back down there and live with them. He'd go across the lake here. They call Little Hoyt. Hoyt. I guess it's still there. Well, some people call it Brooklyn. And he found an oil that, and he dug that. This rock mason did, and fixed it himself with concrete. It's round. And he made a lad to it, too. Then in many days, he tell Pearl and Grandma to get a lot of hickory and make ashes. And they made a lot of hickory ashes. He carried over and chicken feathers. And Grandma asked him one morning and said, Mr. Radley said, what are you doing with that stuff you're carrying it off? Just be quiet. He'd go on up there. See that can that had money in it, he'd put that stuff in there. And I believe today a person found that everything is new just like it was put away. It's a smart Indian done it. And a lot of people hunts money down here to there was a post office where Bills used to live. There ain't no money there. Grandma said they never put away no money. They said lost here somewhere. They might found it. All the money's over there. Years went by. Well, my grandma down and passed away, and her boy still lives. His name was Tobe Downey. He comes over here and says, he was talking to my brother, said, well, my mother was still living. And they got her to go with them over there. Mama knows where it was. They went up there and told Uncle told him, said, we're going to stay here a while and look around. So you sit here and you tell us we're about to go, Mama said, see that knoll up there? So that's where it's at. They walk around there like hunting something. People live there in that big park sitting on top. White House.
It is time to stop. It is time to stop. It is time to stop.
You can understand or not.
All right, now why don't you send greetings to Chief Keeler and tell him who you are and tell him about your meeting him at Colum.
Yeah. Well, I guess I better spit this snuff out. And I keep me busy all the time. Well, how will I start it off?
Well, you just say hello to Chief Keeler and tell him who you are.
Hello, David Keeler. I'm here today. What is your name, Davis?
West.
Yeah. Mr. West is here with me today. I told him a lot of stories about my people. And I'm always glad someone come and ask me about my people. Also Boyd Pierce, he was kin to Mama. And I would like to talk to you, to your face, about the money that they're going to get, the Cherokee Indian. I would be glad if I get money. I'm living in a corner where I can't get nothing to eat hardly, but still I get a little to eat, not very much. I hope they have a meeting, Cherokee meeting here at our schoolhouse like they did one day. I met you there and told you who I was. I'm a not very much. I hope they have a meeting, Cherokee meeting here at our schoolhouse like they did one day. I met you there and told you who I was. I'm a great-great-granddaughter of Sequoyah Gas. I told you about it. And John Alexander is kin to him too. Andy Alexander, down at Portland. You know them boys. Well, I'm always glad to see you all. I hope to see you all again. Have a big dinner down at our schoolhouse someday.
Now, who was your grandfather, great-grandfather?
My great-grandfather is Sequoyah Gas.
No, his son then. Who was your great-grandfather? T.C.?
Yeah,
T.C.
T.C. Gas was my great-grandfather, my grandma's daddy.
And then what was your grandmother's name?
Sallie Gas.
Sallie Gas.
And her sister, Katie Gas.
Uh-huh.
Downing now.
And then it became Downing. And then she married
James Alexander.
All right.
And they had one boy.
Yes.
And his old, his name was James.
Uh-huh.
Then James had a boy named John.
Yes.
He lives at Weber Fall today. And his boys, Andy Alexander and Leroy. And there's 2 or 3 more boys. I don't know the name. One lives in Arkansas now.
I see.
And one of the boys married my cousin, Jess Tony's girl.
I see.
And
your maiden name then was Tony.
yeah.
And your father's name Sequoyah Tony?
No, my father's name Levi Tony, and his daddy's name was Sequoyah. He was congressman with Purim Davis.
He was congressman same time Purim Davis.
And Stan Gray. They always went to Washington, you know. They stayed 6 months when they went.
I see.
And Grandpa got sick over there, Sequoyah Tony, and he come home, didn't live long.
I see.
He died.
Now the grave that I had a picture of, that is your great grandmother.
Yeah, yeah, over
And
here.
she was a granddaughter of Sequoyah.
Yeah,
I see. Her mother was a Bowles.
Yeah,
Chief Bowles' daughter.
Rebecca Bowles.
Rebecca Bowles.
And
Now, you told me why you didn't get to go to school. Tell me why you quit school.
well, we started one day when we sat out there under the shade about this Nighthawk Catullus.
Yes.
Well, what I could understand, some, and some I don't. They run us out of here. They was going to kill all Cherokee people around here. Well, my grandma Downing, that's my grandma's sister, you know, Katie Downing, come down here in a wagon. He said, Levi said, we're going to have to move our family. We're going to have to go to northeast from here. At a Redbird Smith. And we're going to be there till everything settles here. So we stayed 1.5 years, I guess, maybe 2 years. We left here in 1901 and came home in 1903. And of course, the old man started it, had done dead and gone. His name was Tom Luke, who once started, was going to kill all Cherokee people around here.
I see.
But my uncle Tobe stayed home. And he told Grandma, said, Mom, said, I'm going to...
That was Tobe who?
Tobe Downing?
Tobe Downing. He was a congressman too, wasn't he?
No, he just like my boy.
Uh-huh.
You know, stayed home all the time. And he told his mother, said, Grandmama said, I'm going to stay home. There's nobody going to hurt me, and I will hurt somebody if they try to run me out of my home. This is my home.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit right here. He had 2 Winchesters sitting by the door and loaded this steel ball now.
Mm.
If that's their business, when they come to the gate, tell me to get out.
Yeah.
They're the ones going to get out, not me. And my grandmother had smokehouse full of meat. Boy, we just load that in a wagon and stone jar full of lard and things
Yeah.
like that, and garden stuff. We took off. Went to 14 miles north of Vienna to Redbird Smith. And we usually have meeting there all the time.
Now,
And,
where did you leave the trunk that they burned that had your Sequoyah
It's
metal in it?
about 8 miles north of Vienna. An old man lived there named Grits.
Grits.
We called him G-Stun. We called him Crawdad Grits.
Oh, that Grits. Now, he's not the one that lived near Weber's Falls?
He lived at Vienna.
North of Vienna.
And so, while we was there, Mama had that deed. What I was going to tell you about the deed, you know.
Yeah.
When they run Trail of Tears at Texas, this boy was with us, George Guess. He was a Cherokee leader in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
And when he got shot, he told the boy, he said, take this deed and give to my sister, as his sister-in-law, though. And it was chamois skin, and it's wrote with gold. That's the prettiest thing you ever saw. He said, you tell her to split that feather bed and put it in there. And he's leading a mule, you know, a lot of cook vessels and feather bed and thing, you know, coming this way. And so when she did, when he caught her, she taken that deed and put in feather bed, and I still got feather bed.
Well, that's good.
And so, of course, they went back to look for him, and they didn't find him. Well, he was killed. All they could find is the blood spot. And the boy said, well, he was laying right here when they left him. They looked for him, you know, they went about 50, 60 yards away from the road. They found a snag, you know, hickory snag, and his body was laying on the other side, and his head was gone. But they found his head, it's in Washington, in a jar of vinegar. And that proves it, how they treated us over there. And when she brought the deed down here, and my great-grandma died, my grandmother took it, sat it to Newey. And she had that in her trunk all the time. Well, my daddy, one day she said, Mama said, let me keep that deed. Said, anybody could come in and beat you up and take the deed away from you. So Daddy took the deed and put it in the trunk and locked it. Well, when we were down there at the Vienna, people wanted to see, people to come to see that, wanted to see that deed. Finally, there's 3 men come up there want to borrow that. There's some rich man in Fort Smith want to see this. Well, Daddy, he's like me, I guess. Well, he's my friend. It's all right. He let that deed go. Let the man take three men take it. And they sold that deed at Fort Smith for $1,000. It's back to Washington now. And my grandma done it, tried to get it back while she lived. She vowed to get it back when she passed away. Grandma Downey. And that's where we lost this deed. And we come home, my uncle, John Toney, come, he wanted that. And my daddy said, well, I loaned it to he named it one John Taylor and Old Man Grits, when I'm talking about old man. And one of them named was Smith. And got this deed and sold it at Fort Smith.
Was that Levi Grits?
No,
Wasn't Levi?
it's,
You called him Crawdad, huh?
Crawdad, I think he was just white man, just what I thought all the time. But he talked good Cherokee.
I see.
And he wanted that button. It come off my grandfather, you know, when he got killed here at the Hunter Hill, this out in Muskogee. They found his button. Well, he wanted that. And he wanted that medal that my grandfather wore, you know, Sequoyah. Mama's one who got it, you see. He wanted all that. Well, when we got ready to leave and come home, when we left here, we had 3 wagons loaded. When we come home, we just had 2 wagons. And Dad said, well, we just take these 2 wagons and leave the rest of it here. Said, old man be taking care of it. Well, house set about like that out there. And we left the trunk and Mama's new sewing machine and a lot of large pictures. That was Sequoyah's picture that Mama had. Big pictures, pretty soon you ever saw. And it burned up in there. And all our clothes and some quilts and some feather bed. But it happened. Me and Grandma had one wagon, Grandma Tanu, and we carried the old feather bed back with us. It's just a little thing, just about that wide now. And I'm going to get me a new chicken this fall, and so I'm going to try to keep it as long as I live, yeah.
Now, you told me you didn't go to school because of some buffalo. What tell me
Yeah.
about that?
Well, this is what happened now. When we were down there with this Nighthawk Katuya, they wouldn't let their children go to school, too. Well, Mama, she didn't want us to go to school. Said they'd talk a lot of talk, I don't know what. We better not educate our children. They'd be marrying white people. All this such a mess as that. Daddy said, well, they're going to anyhow. I said, they went to school or not, I guess it's true. All of my people married into white people.
Yeah.
I ain't got no grandchild black-headed. All white-headed and blue-eyed. I got 26 grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And that's just the way it went on. Then the Mama didn't want us to go to school. Daddy, he wanted us to go to school. Then my uncle come, Eli Toney, from North of Tahlequah. He come after us for us to go stay with him. He was a school teacher at seminary then. He wanted us to go there and said, I'll bring them home when I educate them. No, Mama wouldn't let us go. Daddy was willing us to go stay with Uncle Eli. No, Mama wouldn't. No. That's how come today, I guess, mostly that I ain't got no education.
But
when he did started us to school, well, the buffalo got in the way. Got scared to go through the prairie, so we didn't go.
You actually saw the buffaloes were fighting.
Yeah, there's a fighting our way. Dust was just going like that.
What happened? Were there very many buffaloes?
Well, we'll say about 50 of them now. That I could
Okay.
understand that's how many there was. Then I didn't know. A great big bunch of them. One of them was a great big one.
Were they around here all the time, or they just?
Yeah, they was all around here. And I found it that people from Kansas City, Wichita, Kansas, came down here, 10 men, I believe, and drove this buffalo out of here to Wichita. So we didn't go to school anymore. We went one day at Bart's Schoolhouse, Diane. Teacher's name was John Rogers, lived in Diane. He was part Cherokee. We went one day. We never did
That's all you went, huh?
Yeah. But I can sure read Cherokee.
You can.
Yeah, the Bible. And I have church here every Thursday night.
Well, Sequoyah did a wonderful thing to give you people the
Yeah,
alphabet they
yeah.
celebrate.
Yeah, it sure did. That dream he had, I often think. A lot of people tells me, say, there ain't no such thing, there ain't no heaven, there ain't no hell. Why, Sequoyah had that rock in his hand when he woke up. There is something somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, his little girl had been dead 11 days, I believe, the boy said. When they went up to the mountain, it'd been raining and water running next morning when they went up to the mountain. And he give out, and he told the boy, said, I'm going to sleep for a while. So the boy lay down there, and he did here. And the stream of water was running, prettiest water. And the boy didn't go to sleep. He saw a butterfly come up there from that stream of water and went right there where Sequoyah was and fly around his head, and that father let right there in his chin. And that father done the same thing, went back down there where he come from, white butterfly. And so that way after a while, Sequoyah said, look here what I got. The boy got up, said, my little girl come back to see me. And said, this is what she brought me. Said, I'm going to teach my people through the world. And he had that rock in his hand and a little pencil. The little girl brought it to him that day. as I say, I wish I had education. I know what the year was they drove out Houston, Texas to here, so I don't know nothing
No.
about
Well, then I think it's 18 and 39. You came and stayed a while up in Choctaw country, right this side of the Red River, and they didn't like wanting to stay there. So then you came on up here to Cherokee Dutchess country, up here around Prairie Gap in Texas.
Yeah,
And T.C. was with them.
yeah,
And then T.C. went with his father to Mexico, they say.
yeah,
And then came back, and he was a senator from the Canadian district back in '53. Then he fought with his brother-in-law, who was Sallie Davis. He fought with him in the Civil War. His brother-in-law was a captain. He was a lieutenant.
yeah.
And now, where is your mother said that the graveyard that T.C. was buried in was a graveyard over here that's called an Indian graveyard, about 2.5 miles from
Texana.
Texana.
Now there's another graveyard out straight through the north from here, an old graveyard. And this graveyard here, right after the war, and my daddy was little then, and Uncle John, Uncle Eli, and Uncle Sanders, there's 4 of them, my grandpa's children. But he built 2 huge logs over here at the cemetery.
I see.
And they lived there. He had 3 daughters. Sequoyah had 3 daughters. One named Nancy Toney, Sallie Toney, and Maggie Toney. But Maggie died when she was just 16. And Sallie died after she had 1 child. And she married a fellow named Musserett. They had 1 girl, Katie. Her name was Katie, but she passed away about 10 years ago. And Aunt Nancy married Duncan Leader. And they had 2 kids, Liza and Jesse James. And that's my first cousin. And Liza married a fellow named Jim Gord, who was a white man. And they had a house full of children. But just 1 girl living, now she lives at Central High, Alice Gord. And she's the only one living. And Nancy Toney had 2 kids when she first married, and they separated. And Duncan Leader married Polly Blackhall, girl down here in the bottom. And my aunt, she got up and left the children, James and Liza. One morning, Grandpa was pretty sick after he'd done been to Washington. And he told Daddy, he said, go get your horse and go get your sister. I heard the old man left them. And it's getting cold, said, you better go get your sister and the children. When he got there, Aunt Nancy done gone. And the children was standing at the door crying, a little bitty fellows. And James, he's old enough to talk. He told Daddy, he said, my mother left yesterday with suitcase, said went that road, went west. And so Daddy told him, said, get Jones's clothes, said, let's go back to Daddy's. The James said they got toe sack and said they hunt their clothes. And the old man walked up in there. I forgot the old man's name. He's an old white man. He lived just a little ways from Aunt Nancy. He said, your sister left here yesterday, said, with suitcase. And I don't know what these kids sleep here by themselves or not. But I thought she'd come back. This morning I come, so the kids was a-crying. And I brought them for breakfast. So I don't know where your sister went to. Well, he said, I'm going to take them home with me. He said, they can't stay here by themselves. I don't know where my sister went to. She got mad because her old man left her and left the little children there. And Daddy brought them down here where the cemetery is. My grandpa was still living. cold that winter time. Said one evening Grandpa was cutting the woods. This covered wagon come from Texas. Said he turned off, went right up to the gate. The old man got out. He was a white man. He asked him, said, "You sure it's getting cold?" Said, "I have a sick baby in my wagon. I wonder we could stay all night." Yeah, and Grandpa was an educated man. He could talk good English, could understand good. He told him, said, "Yes, I'd go get your baby and bring her in the house." And Grandma, she had a lot of feather beds, you know, Grandma Toney. And she let her have her bed and lay there 3 days. This little girl died. And Grandma told my grandfather, said, while she's taking care of the sick baby, said that she laid her head on a pillow, you know, taking care of her, said she dreamed while she's taking care of this little girl. Said, "You see that big apple tree that y'all found when y'all first found? Built this house." Said, "It's going to be a graveyard under that tree. Take care of it. Take good care of it." And that morning, 3 o'clock, the little girl died. And she's the one started this graveyard here. And my grandmother, she had just made her dress a long time ago. They made big dress, you know, gathered dress. She tore up her new dress and fixed her coffin. And everything in pillowcase she had good lined inside. Grandma did. And she's the one started our graveyard. And so my people, first Grandma died, and she was buried right next to this little girl. Then my grandfather. Then 2 of my uncles, Anderson and
But that's the Toney graveyard down here.
This is Toney graveyard,
No,
east.
I mean, that's the Davis graveyard.
Yeah, that's a Davis. Yeah, that's how that graveyard started. It's a little girl from Texas. And they had 2 little boys, Grandpa said, pretty good size, 10, 13 years old boys. They started somewhere in Mulberry, Arkansas, where her people lived. That's where it started. This little girl got sick, had the pneumonia, and she couldn't make it. And she died in Grandma's bed. Well, after everything was over with, so they left, went to Mulberry, Arkansas. Said, years passed, said, all the people died, just me and my sister lived. I said, one morning, early in the spring, they was fixing to make gardens. So the finest buggy drove up, and there's these 2 boys, grown men, and both preachers, Baptist preachers. And they told my sisters, and my aunt, said, "We are the boys that lost our little sister here. Well, we're on our way back to Texas, where our grandfather lived. See, her people lived there, you know, and some of her people in Mulberry, Arkansas. They were on their way to see her people when she lost a little girl. And they told Daddy, said her mother and her dad had passed away in Mulberry, Arkansas. They're the only one 2 living. Stop by there and see Daddy and all that.
Well, that's good.
Grown man and both preaching.
Well, that's good. Well, I guess I'd better go.
Well, good.
I'll let you talk to Chief Keeler. Maybe that'll make him come
Well,
out
tell
and
him to dig up that money. I sure need it.
see you. All right.